Hey everyone, thanks for joining our deep dive. You've sent over some great material looking at APIs, SDKs, and this newer thing called the Model Context Protocol, MCP.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area.
It really feels like understanding these is key to figuring out how modern apps, actually work,
Yeah.
maybe where AI integration is heading.
Absolutely. Think about any app you use, ordering food, getting news. There's just so much going on under the hood.
Right.
That Byte Go video on APIs versus SDKs, it really highlighted how apps juggle payments, maps, notifications, tons of stuff. It's complex.
Totally. And imagine if every single developer had to build all of that from scratch. It'd be, well, impossible.
A nightmare. Yeah, the video is spot on. APIs and SDKs are fundamentally how these services connect and play nice together.
So our mission today, I guess, is to unpack these APIs, SDKs, and then really get into MCP to see how it fits, especially with AI.
Exactly. A bit of a shortcut to getting up to speed on these vital bits of tech.
Cool. Let's start with the APIs. Go called them universal translators. I like that. What are they translating, though?
Good question. They're translating requests and data between different software systems. So one application can use the features of another without needing to know how it works internally.
Okay. So I don't need to build my own map system. I can just use a map API.
Precisely. You leverage existing reliable services. It's way more efficient.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Video mentioned REST architecture. What's the core idea there?
REST is just a really common set of rules for how these API communications happen over the web. Think simple actions. Get to fetch data, post to add new stuff, poo to update, delete to remove.
Like commands.
Yeah, using standard web requests, HTTP, sent to specific addresses or endpoints.
Okay, almost like a specific instruction sent to a specific place. The food delivery app example in the video was helpful. How do APIs work there?
Right, that was a good one. So you open the app, see a map, that's likely a mapping API. Browse restaurants, probably internal APIs, fetching menu data, place the order. A payment API kicks in securely.
Securely, right.
And then maybe a messaging API connects you to the driver. It's all these different APIs working together, kind of invisibly.
Yeah, you don't even think about it. But security must be huge. How do they manage that? The video mentioned keys.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Often APIs use keys, like a password for the application, or maybe something called OAuth to verify who's making the request.
Okay.
And rate limiting, too, that stops one app from overwhelming the service by making too many requests too quickly.
Got it. Prevents abuse. Okay, so APIs are the messengers. What about SDKs, the pre-built toolboxes?
Right. SDKs are software development kits. They're essentially packages designed to make using a specific API much easier for a developer.
Easier how?
Well, they bundle together pre-written code, tools, documentation, everything tailored for a platform like Android or iOS. It handles a lot of the fiddly technical bits.
So developers can focus more on their app's features.
Exactly, takes away some heavy lifting. The video mentioned SDKs often contain pre-built API clients. What do those do?
Yeah, those clients are super helpful. They manage the authentication, format the API request correctly, and then parse the sometimes messy API responses into usable data for the app.
Cleans it up for you, pretty much. Simplifies the whole process.
I can see how that saves time. The Instagram SDK example in the video sharing a photo seemed way simpler with the SDK.
Definitely. Instead of writing, potentially loads of complex code just to get that shared Instagram button working, the SDK gives you a much cleaner, quicker way. It handles the interaction with Instagram's API behind the scenes.
So APIs are the raw connection, SDK is the polished toolkit. When you pick one, the video had some pointers.
Yeah, good summary. Direct API use gives you total control, fewer dependencies. Maybe the SDK doesn't exist yet, or you need something very specific.
Right.
But if speed is key, or you want built-in best practices or platform-specific stuff, the SDK is usually the way to go.
And often you might use both.
Very often, yeah. SDK is for the common stuff. Direct API calls for the unique bits.
Okay, that clarifies the API-SDK relationship. Now let's shift to what sounds like the really big news. MCP, the Model Context Protocol. Sources say it's a major step for AI.
Huge potential, yes. Anthropic released it late 2024, and the excitement comes from how it could drastically simplify connecting large language models like Claude to external tools and data.
Simplify how? What was the problem before?
The N-by-N problem. Basically, if you have, say, 5 AI models and 10 different tools or databases they need to connect to, you might need 5 times 10, so 50 custom integrations. It just explodes.
Whoa, okay. That sounds incredibly inefficient. MCP fixes that.
That's the goal. It proposes an open standard protocol, a common language for these connections. Connect AI to databases, APIs, file systems, whatever, in a standardized way.
Universal connector for AI.
Kind of, yeah. Instead of point-to-point chaos, it's a hub-and-spoke model almost.
The Byte by Go video mentioned a client-server model for MCP. Can you break down the parts?
Sure. 3 main players: the host, the client, and the server.
Okay.
The host is the LLM app itself, like Claude Desktop. It's the environment. The client lives inside the host and makes a specific connection out to a server.
And the server.
That's a separate thing, providing the actual capability, access to Google Drive, a database, query tool, whatever. It speaks the MCP language back to the client.
Host, client, server. Got it. Now, the sources mention 5 core primitives that make MCP tick. These are like the basic commands.
Exactly, the fundamental building blocks. 3 are on the server side. First, prompts, instructions sent to the LLM telling it how to use a tool or process data. They get injected right into the LLM's thinking space, its context window.
Guiding the AI.
Okay. Second, resources. Actual structured data, like maybe a file's content, also put directly into the LLM's context so it can see it and refer to it. Fast access.
It gives it the facts. And third,
Tools. These are actual functions the LLM can call to do something outside itself, like, hey, run this database query for me, or summarize this external web page.
okay, prompts guide, resources inform, tools act. What about the client-side primitives?
2 main ones there. Root creates a secure way to access local files. Really important, lets the AI work with your documents safely without having access to everything.
Like a secure sandbox for files.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And sampling, this one's neat. It lets the server ask the LLM for help. Maybe the server needs help figuring out the right database query structure. It can ask the LLM.
Oh, interesting. So it's two-way. The tool can use the AI smarts, too.
Exactly. Very powerful interaction.
So back to that N-by-N problem.
Yeah.
How does this whole setup, these primitives, actually solve it?
It's the standardization. A tool builder just needs to create one MCP server for their tool. An LLM provider just needs to support the MCP protocol once in their model.
Ah.
Then, any MCP-compatible LLM can talk to any MCP-compatible tool. No more N times N custom jobs. One connection standard to rule them all, so to speak.
That's a massive simplification. Huge potential for, well, everyone. Are people using this already?
Yeah.
Any examples?
Yeah, the ecosystem's starting to build out. The sources mention integrations with things like Google Drive, Slack, GitHub, Git, even databases like PostgreSQL. So it's happening.
Real-world use cases are appearing. And developers get help too, right?
Oh.
SDKs were mentioned?
That's right. To make building these MCP servers and clients easier, there are SDKs available in languages like TypeScript and Python, which are pretty common.
Lowers the barrier to entry.
Definitely.
Professor Ross Mike had that analogy, likening MCP to a translation layer, helping the LLM understand all the different tool languages.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. MCP provides that common ground, that unified language, so the LLM doesn't have to learn the specifics of every single tool it might need to interact with.
Super helpful. Okay, let's connect this back. Some listeners might be thinking about AI agents for their own websites. How could MCP fit in there?
Well, imagine your website AI needs to check inventory in a database, or process a payment, or send an email.
Right, lots of connections needed.
Without something like MCP, you'd be building custom links for each. With MCP, potentially, your AI agent running on an LLM that supports MCP could connect to standard MCP servers for your database, your payment gateway, your email service.
Could make building really smart connected website features much more feasible.
That's the promise. More sophisticated, context-aware AI assistants become potentially much easier to build and integrate.
But it's still early days, right? The sources mentioned the ecosystem is still developing.
Very important point, yes. MCP is new, the standards might evolve, more tools need to adopt it. It's definitely one to watch closely, but it's not, universally adopted overnight.
Got it. So exciting potential, but still emerging. Okay, let's try and wrap this up. APIs and SDKs are like the established plumbing of the internet, how software talks.
Yeah, fundamental building blocks.
And MCP looks like a potentially huge upgrade for the AI era, standardizing how AI connects to everything else.
Exactly. A potential common language for AI interaction with the digital world. Understanding these layers gives you real insight into how things work now and, crucially, where they might be going.
So here's something to chew on. If AI gets this standardized way to plug into almost anything, databases, tools, your local files, what completely new kinds of apps or website functions could we see soon?
What does that unlock?
Yeah, what could that mean for your work, your projects, your interests? It's worth thinking about. We definitely encourage listeners to keep exploring APIs, SDKs, and especially keep an eye on how MCP develops. Check out developer resources, follow the tech news.
It's moving fast. Understanding the basics we covered today puts you in a great spot to follow along and see what happens next.